All right, guys, so we have a lot to be discussing. We're going to be talking about the Bitcoin weekly chart as it is going to be closing in about 4 to 5 hours, what it means for the overall week that we're going to be heading into. We're going to be talking about a chart that I want to actually show you, and this is going into the actual next year. What could be happening when the actual Fed starts to cut rates? Is it going to be good for the overall market? Is it good for Bitcoin, altcoins? So we're going to be discussing that. We're going to be talking about Titan next as well too. So stick around till the end of the video, guys. You don't actually want to miss this information. If you enjoy this content, definitely give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing. So we do see essentially Joe Biden coming out talking about inflation, how it has been at a steady 0% for the last month, and that the economy actually grew more than 5% the last quarter. And then you see actually Twitter coming out, the community reforms and correcting the president of the United States, essentially saying that the tweet is referring to the PCE index, the change from the preceding month. Inflation is normally assessed at annually 12 months. However, the Fed PCE goal is 2% and is currently at 3%. And a more commonly referred inflation index is CPI, which annually inflation of 3.2%, guys. So basically, they're correcting Joe Biden in terms of what he is addressing in terms of 0% inflation. You can never have 0% inflation, guys. If you actually look at the real inflation, the core inflation, that is continuing to essentially go up, guys. It is astronomical to think that inflation essentially stays stagnant for either a month or a quarter. That's never the case, and that's why you're basically investing in assets that are going to appreciate over value to fight off that inflation. So what I want to actually discuss going into this is that, look, the Fed will eventually cut rates going into next year, and they are predicting that this is going to happen 6 times in 2024. So what actually eventually happens once the rate cuts occur? So what we got to look at is what I've compared it to is we got the Fed interest rate chart. So I've at the top as you can see here, and then below that we have the Dow Jones Industrial Average chart below. Now the reason I'm using this is because, again, it has a lot of data, going back in all the way historically. You can go back again all the way to 1900s. Okay, so with that being said, it is, I think, the best chart to look at historically to see what eventually happens. But again, we only have data going back since 1973 with interest rates. So comparing that, let's go ahead and take a look at actually what happens. So we can see here during 2019 to 2020, guys, we had that again cerveza sickness dump, which eventually they had to actually drop rates, and we saw that rates eventually dropped about 41%. Now if we go back to 2007, during that last recession that we had, we dropped about 57%, guys. So as you can see, as I'm lining these up, we can see even during 2001 to 2001 recession, we had about a 35% drop. If we go back and we continue to do the same exact thing every time the rates have actually dropped, we can see again 22% here as well too, and 40% during 1973 to 1974. So guys, every time the Fed has actually come out and dropped rates, it actually has not spelled very good for the overall markets in the short term. So with that being said, I've actually grabbed all the averages that have occurred for the past, again, 30, 40 some odd years, and we came to the average of 36%. Now where does that put you in regards to the industrial average Dow Jones? That puts you just roughly around 24 to 26,000 dollars, guys. Okay, so that's about a 36% drop. Now speaking in regards to Bitcoin, because again, Bitcoin historically, we don't have much to go basis off, ever since the Fed rates get cut. We can only really say during, again, the cerveza sickness, and we actually had roughly about 60% drop. Okay, Now that's the only thing we can actually go basis off of. With that being said, if we actually particularly look, at some charts, they only start during 2008, 2009, during the, coming out of the peak of that particular recession. So with that being said, guys, historically, what is going to be happening with Bitcoin? Bitcoin is in uncharted territory. We don't know exactly how Bitcoin is going to perform when the rate cuts eventually happen. Now, usually, guys, when the rate cuts do happen, we tend to see sometimes inflation actually go up, which could mean that risk on assets are going to benefit from this. So risk on assets like Bitcoin are more likely going to do very well. But because, we don't have much historical data, we can't say for 100% that's what's actually going to be happening. But let's go ahead and jump on. I do want to jump on to the weekly time frame for Bitcoin, as we do have the weekly candle closure coming in. We do see that coming in about 4 hours to 4 to 5 hours from now. And with that being said, we can see that this candle closure is going to more likely close below $40,000 unless something else actually changes in the next 4 to 5 hours. With that being said, guys, there's a lot of confluence of resistance, coming in this particular area, which is going to take a bit of time to actually get above. However, we've been kind of grinding in this specific scenario for quite some time. Now, so far, guys, we've seen 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 green candles to the upside. So that means, 7 weekly candles. We've seen upside movement and closure above the previous weekly candle. So this is good. It's grabbing momentum. However, it's not out of the question, again, that we could be ranging in around $36,000 area, to 35 to 39,000. It's not out of the question, because if we drop this on a weekly time frame, if we drop below 35,000, then you're looking more likely at targets around $29,000 to $30,000. Now, hopefully, as long as we can stay above $35,000 to $40,000, we should be okay. Continuing this, momentum, this grind up above $40,000. Now, I do also want to note that, look, if you were to grab your extrapolation point from the top of the bull market right here around 2021, and you were to draw it down all the way to the bear market lows around November of 2022, you can see we're actually coming at a very important Fibonacci retracement level, which is around the 618. Now, again, the 618 is the golden pocket ratio. Usually things do align around that area. Now, I would say usually, guys, is that, rallies do tend to essentially, progressively slow down over time, and more likely looking at peak tops. Now, I'm not saying particularly this is the peak top. However, looking from our previous statistical data, we've actually seen that Bitcoin can actually get above $40,000 and more likely could be heading, towards $44,000. Okay. So with that being said, these are some key important areas, guys, to watch out for. Again, coming back all the way months from last year, indicating, look, it's a great opportunity to buy Bitcoin. Bitcoin has essentially risen roughly around 165% to the upside, guys. So it's not bad. Talking about $1 billion asset, a big asset like Bitcoin, okay, is humongous, guys. It is humongous to be talking about these type of gains going up 165%. But again, if you're actually comparing it to gold, other commodities, you're talking about trillions of dollars, which seems like nothing compared to Bitcoin. But with that being said, it looks good. It looks good, to be taking some sort of profits here. More likely might be, a pullback, coming along these areas of, $39,000 to $40,000 area. So let's go ahead and actually jump on to TitanX. We'll talk about this as, again, we broke, from that range high coming in back in November of 2023. And this thing continues to essentially, blow things off of the water, guys. Okay. You've actually gone up substantially, coming in around almost 900%. Now, if you do have some miners coming out, again, diversify, guys. Diversify, take some profits. You can remine, on the shorter term powers. which is, again, not too bad. You're still believing in the project overall, but you're still taking profits, diversifying into other crypto assets, or even putting it into stable coins when other opportunities actually do get presented to you. Now, again, I've started my miners from day one. With that specifically said, guys, let's go ahead and actually talk about this. So if we're actually take a look at the buy and burn feature, we can see that in the V2, okay, that there is about almost 5 million, okay, that could be bought and burnt, guys. $5 million that could be essentially bought and burned. If we go to, V1, we can see there's almost 10 million that can be bought and burned, which is absolutely crazy, guys. Because if we actually go here and look at some of the stats, we can see that the only liquid supply, guys, is centering around $3 million, okay? So there's already a buy and burn of roughly, okay, give or take $14 million, okay, less than $14 million, and there's only a liquid supply of $3 million, guys. So there's not enough, again, Titan X coming out a lot sooner in regards to this. And you can see that there's already $55,000 of penalties that have been faced, which is crazy. To think about that, there's 55,000 penalties already been hit by a lot of miners, and usually that's because they haven't claimed their miners in time. Okay, so again, crazy statistics essentially continuing to happen with Titan X, and this is only going to spell good for price. Now, again, guys, always apply caution. Okay, this thing has already gone up, 800%. If you bought, during these times, we've seen even during Zen, I made this mistake myself, is that I went in, started my mints, and then I started buying on the market, and eventually we started putting in lower lows and lower highs. Now, with this thing, it's actually been a different story. You've actually, created this U pattern, this complete curve pattern to the upside, which you haven't actually put in lower lows and lower highs. You're actually putting in higher high and higher lows, guys. Okay, so higher low, and now you're just actually put in a higher high. Okay, so that is actually on the daily time frame. So this is crazy what is actually happening with Titan X, and I think it's going to do, again, phenomenally well. We're going to continue to see these type of game theories essentially coming out. I think a lot of projects are going to implement this type of, again, game theories that we're seeing with Titan X, taking the best of both worlds from Zen, from Hex, and continuing to essentially apply that. I think that is going forward some of the projects that we're going to continue to see. But guys, cutting this video a little bit short. If you haven't followed me on Twitter, go ahead and follow me there. I do come out with essentially calls that you don't actually want to miss, whether it's stocks, crypto, and even, again, commodities. I'll leave you off with this. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Until next time, bros, as always, stay profitable.